This was a classic example of a love triangle gone wrong. Sabrina Limon and her husband Robert were once a very popular couple in the little town of Silver Lake, California. They appeared to be the perfect match, earning the title the It Couple. They were also known for throwing booze-filled gatherings for their tight-knit group of friends dubbed the Wolf Pack. However, their marriage was everything but ordinary. In pursuit of keeping things spicy, Robert and Sabrina chose to open their marriage to other people. They went on adult vacations. They went out boating. They partied a lot at North Lake. Julie Cordova, Sabrina's sister, told 2020. Even though this might be the personal choice of certain people, it's simple to see how this could cause issues in the future. After years of living this way, Sabrina desired to return to a more conventional and normal life, but Robert was apparently happy with how things were. And then everything came crashing down in August 2014. Robert was killed at work in what looked like a robbery gone wrong. He left behind his reportedly grieving wife and 2 children. Examining security footage from the day of the crime, detectives found one man on a motorcycle who seemed rather suspicious. Later on, this man would be identified as Jonathan Hearn, a young firefighter. It would be revealed later that Jonathan and Sabrina had been secretly seeing each other behind Robert's back. Detectives then started tapping the two's phones and looking through their messages, suspecting they might have been involved in this murder. They soon gathered enough evidence to accuse them both of being involved in Robert's murder. While Sabrina was released a few days later due to insufficient evidence against her, Jonathan was detained and accused of murder. He was looking at a life sentence in prison. He was, however, given the opportunity to enter a plea agreement in exchange for confessing to the murder and testifying on Sabrina's involvement. He took it. Jonathan admitted that Sabrina would have preferred Robert dead rather than divorcing him, and since he, Jonathan, was in love with her, he had agreed to kill Robert so that they could be together. Jonathan was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his evidence, while Sabrina was arrested again. She denied any role in her late husband's murder once more, but this time she was found guilty, and on February 21st, 2018, she was sentenced to 25 years behind bars. This footage shows Jonathan's reaction after the sentencing.
I have sinned. I am guilty of choices that have torn awful wounds in many hearts, rippling destructively through so many precious lives. I have fallen terribly short of the standards of Jesus, who commands to serve each other, to be humble, and to love.
Their reaction, however, was nothing compared to that of Larissa and Christopher. Court staff frequently hear the gory details of terrible criminal cases. These details can occasionally be upsetting, disgusting, and difficult to hear. However, this is normal for many law enforcement professionals, including judges. Occasionally, though, these officials come across stories that are so horrible that they find it impossible to contain their emotions. This is what happened in the case of Larissa and Christopher Rodriguez. The judge overseeing their case cried for the first time in her 22 years because of the harsh and callous things these folks did to a precious 5-year-old boy.
I'm appalled and disgusted by what I've done. I know as a judge I'm not supposed to show emotion. And in 22 years I never have. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
I have to imagine that at some point you got on the internet and said, how do I bury a body? Because this is unbelievable.
I just signed your death warrant. I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100.
In this footage, Larissa Rodriguez is the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court in Cleveland, Ohio, with her boyfriend Christopher Rodriguez. It's almost time for Judge Nancy Margaret Rousseau to read their sentence. However, the circumstances that led them here occurred many years ago. That fatal evening, Christopher brought Jordan, Larissa's 5-year-old son who had special needs, to her. Larissa put the boy to bed after giving him a quick cold shower. In a tragic turn of events, the boy was found dead the following day. However, instead of dialing 911 for help, the couple made a horrible decision. They buried the child in their backyard, wrapping his body in blankets and mothball-filled sacks. Nearly 2 months later, Christopher's brother gave the police a tip that took them to the Rodriguez home.
She's got 5 kids. Are your kids here? You mind if you step in? Okay. You have one of 4 or 5-year-olds.
A police officer came to make inquiries, and Larissa was well prepared.
Okay, what can we see? Okay, I believe you.
Don't want me mad. But I have them all broken out in my...
Okay. Okay.
Negative, just on the
oldest
brother
one,
of
she's right
Christopher
there.
Rodriguez and his girlfriend, Larissa Rodriguez.
Let me know. Fine.
All right. Hello, kids. All right. All right.
Apparently Larissa has...
What's your name, Mel?
Apparently Larissa has 9 other children and she told the other...
Is there, I mean, a reason?
According to Larissa, her son Jordan was with his father in Texas. However, she was unable to give a phone number for them to be reached. It was later found out that this statement was false. The police went back to the house the following day to verify the information given by Christopher Rodriguez's brother, who had told the authorities that the child was dead and buried in the backyard.
Basically, him and his girlfriend buried the kid in the backyard.
If you believed that the couple would have felt regret for their mistakes, you were mistaken. Things became even more bizarre during their sentencing. Larissa Rodriguez and her boyfriend were taken into custody and charged in court as a result of these incidents. Nevertheless, they made a plea agreement that led to the dismissal of the murder charges in exchange for a guilty plea to counts of involuntary manslaughter, felonious assault, 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, and the abuse of a corpse. Back in the courtroom, Judge Rousseau begins by sentencing Larissa Rodriguez.
Court imposes a sentence as follows. Counts 1, 2, and 3 to be served consecutive to each other and concurrent to the sentence imposed in count 5 for a total sentence of 25 years.
Larissa was given a 25-year prison term. However, before proceeding to sentencing Christopher Rodriguez, Judge Rousseau had a few words for her.
What we do every day is so hard for dealing with the horrors that are brought before us. And Mr. Rodriguez, this is a horror. I know as a judge I'm not supposed to show emotion. And in 22 years, I never have. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
You and Larissa, I look at friends and family and people who are desperate to have children and want to have families, and you two have babies with no consideration. You just keep having them, disregarding the value of their life, disregarding their purpose in life, like they're less than an object.
Additionally, the judge rejected the 20 to 25-year sentence that the prosecution and defense had agreed upon, believing it to be too little a punishment for the seriousness of the crimes that were committed. I will not accept the recommendation.
There's every opportunity at so many points to make a difference, to get help, to stop beating somebody, to call the police, to ask for help, to try to take him to the hospital. I have to imagine that at some point you got on the internet and said, how do I bury a body? Because this is unbelievable.
Judge Rousseau ultimately handed down Christopher Rodriguez the longest possible sentence of 28 years. Despite Christopher Rodriguez's appeal, the decision was maintained. At the moment, Christopher and Larissa Rodriguez are both incarcerated in different parts of Ohio, serving their sentences. If you think that this case was bizarre, you haven't yet seen that of Jeremy and Christine, the craziest reaction to a life imprisonment ever witnessed. Some of the most despised people in our society are those who perpetrate crimes against women and children. Yet the legal system is the one usually in charge of apprehending these offenders and ensuring that they are never able to harm another innocent person. However, there are occasionally stories of people choosing to take justice into their own hands. That is precisely what transpired in the July 2013 case of Jeremy and Christine Moody, the killer couple. Christine Moody was 32 years old and in a bad place. She went looking to start over after leaving a difficult marriage. Then she met Jeremy Moody, a 27-year-old devout man, and they immediately hit it off. They were married within only months. However, their happy ending swiftly took a tragic turn when they got involved in a horrifying double murder.
Couldn't turn the channel without hearing the story.
This was their moment of glory. This was their 15 minutes of fame.
The grisly story began in Union County, South Carolina on July 21st, 2013. A neighbor had paid a visit to another neighbor's house. The neighbor was a local mechanic, and the other neighbor was dropping by to pick up his car after it had been fixed. When he got to the house and knocked on the door, nobody answered. He stuck his head in only to be welcomed by the neighbor's dogs. While the dogs didn't let him get much closer, he did see that they were sparing some sort of red liquid. So the man immediately called the police.
I walk up to the house. I noticed the side door was open. I announced that I was the sheriff's office. No one come to the door.
As the officer started to enter the house, he was met with an absolutely terrifying scene. The two people were dead and covered in blood. As it turned out, the victims were Charles Parker, age 59, and his wife Gretchen Parker, 51. Charles actually had a rather dark secret that perhaps not many people were aware of since it had occurred years ago. He was listed as a perpetrator of crimes against women and children on the National Registry. None of these crimes had anything to do with Gretchen. Now that Jeremy and Christine Moody knew about Charles Parker's criminal history, they decided that he was not deserving of life and they were going to take matters into their own hands. So they devised a plan. They lied to the Parkers that they were having car problems and that way gained access to the couple's house. Once inside, they brutally murdered the couple with several weapons. They most likely would have gotten away with it if it were not for the Parker family's video surveillance system. After being identified by the video footage, the couple was arrested and charged with murder. This was a very bizarre case. We know that Charles Parker's criminal history is the reason Jeremy and Christine killed him, but why did they decide to kill Gretchen too? And now that they were in prison and would probably be there for the rest of their life, did they feel regret for what they had done? A lot of questions remain unanswered, but you should wait to see how they behaved in court.
In the courtroom, Christine exhibited signs of euphoric behavior. She looked at her husband as if he was a god and was completely enamored by him and a little bit disassociated from what was actually happening. It was as if she wasn't actually in a courtroom but walking up on her wedding.
Christine wore a giant smile across her face as she made her way into the courtroom. She was dressed in a tan prison uniform and had shackles around her ankles and wrists. But as soon as she met eyes with her chained-up husband, it was as if she couldn't contain her joy. When she approached the bench, he smiled back.
Nobody really knew what to expect going into the plea because we really had no idea what they were going to do. Everything that they'd done up to that point, there were so many bizarre aspects to their behavior, the way they talked, the things they said in jail, the things they said in their confession.
Christine's smile became even wider as the prosecutor read the many crimes. She even appeared to be nodding along, obviously pleased with her deeds. And if that wasn't strange enough, listen to this strange conversation between Christine and the judge, especially when he asked her if anyone has promised her anything in exchange for entering a guilty plea.
Guilty, sir. You understand? I promised you anything or held out any hope of reward to you in order to get you to plead guilty to these charges.
Just payment for.
Jeremy and Christine behaved themselves very well during the court proceedings, with the exception of their regular displays of contemptuous smiles and odd comments. They even admitted to having regrets and a desire to turn from their sins at one time. But the prosecution expressed his belief that Moody's remorse was entirely false, and it turned out that he was absolutely correct. As soon as the judge ruled that the Moody's would serve their entire lives behind bars, they both changed gears. At that point, Jeremy said something rude about the victims. They got exactly what they deserved. If I had to do it again, I'd kill more.
That's what they deserve. Had to do it over again, I'd kill more.
Then, Christine lashed out, saying how much she enjoyed taking out the victims. This footage is really insane.
I think Jeremy and I would have done it again if given the opportunity.
Do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Killing that file was the best day of my life.
What about not being able to see Jeremy?
Jeremy and I have a love that will withstand this.
What about what you said in court about repenting? Is that not true then?
No, it's not true. My lawyer made me say it.
Do you have anything to say to the victim's family?